Hello and welcome to IMHO. Today I'm talking to Dan Taylor about the impact and the launch of Search GPT slash ChatGPT Search. Dan is the partner and head of technical SEO at Salt and is also an enterprise specialist. And Dan is also one of our star writers at SEJ. Dan has provided SEO strategy and technical consultancy for leading brands such as Cloudflare, GitLab, Airbnb, China Southern Airlines, and Reclaim AI. So he comes with great creds. And Dan also publishes his weekly Cadence newsletter on LinkedIn. He runs International Search News XYZ, and he also hosts the Technical SEO podcast. So I'm going to throw this over to you, Dan. In your opinion, what do you think about the launch of ChatGPT Search? And how do you think this is going to impact the industry? And is this going to take away market share from Google?
No, thank you very much, Shelley. I mean, first of all, I wish they'd called it something slightly easy to roll off the tongue. Um, Too many
Yeah.
syllables going in there. I mean, at least Google did Gemini and Bard to begin with, and SGE. But I think it's an interesting moment because I feel we're at a potential T junction in how we can go in terms of search. I've played a lot with ChatGPT Search, as my article kind of suggests, over the last 48 hours, and my kind of going away feeling is it kind of feels like this is the Ask Jeeves moment of search. It's something taking a pioneering approach to the search model. It's something different, and by being first, it's potentially going to do a lot of the hard work, the legwork in acclimatizing a lot of users to it. In its current state, being completely, well, this is IMHO, so I have to be in my honest opinion. I don't think the current format of it will appeal to mass market too much. I like the local search elements of it felt very lacking. Um, there's almost an element of, regardless of how accurate the information is, because of how polished the Bing and how polished the Google insert features and AI features feel, there's just an element of it feels a bit raw and a bit rugged. And as early adopters and tech enthusiasts and SEOs and marketers, we kind of used to that because we're used to going into tools every day. We've kind of been using ChatGPT for a while, so as a direction as to what we could be looking at in the future, what Bing, what Google, what somebody else with a hopefully easier name to say comes down the line and actually introduces, it's quite interesting because it's clearly that the search model we've all got used to and done SEO for is going to change. In terms of direct market share, I mean, Gartner published a statistic at the start of the year anyway, but they said that search engine volume will decrease by 25% by 2026. And everyone I've spoken to, I've always said I've been skeptical with that. I've always been skeptical with every major prediction that comes out ever since ComScore said 50% of voice search would be, but sorry, 50% of search would be voice search by 2020. But even my first impressions of this when it launched on Friday and just playing with it, this is the first time I'm kind of going, well, I can actually see this now. I can see how other platforms and everything else can kind of adopt this methodology, this approach to information generation, to steering, how that could actually start to decline people's needs to leave ecosystem A and then return to Google. Um, I think we need to move beyond the whole argument of things like, is TikTok a search engine? I think it needs to be like, oh, do we care if TikTok's a search engine? TikTok, Meta, Facebook, all that are going to have their own AI ecosystems, which are going to focus on retaining that user, retaining the active user, selling the adverts, harnessing the data, and improving themselves. How long that takes to happen is going to be questionable. In my article, I include a model I put together, putting users in different user groups, and informational queries are one thing. You can go online and be satisfied with just a piece of text, an image, anything like that. But where you're wanting to book a holiday, subscribe to a piece of software, sign up for a bank account, even purchase a product, you still need to leave the ecosystem and engage directly with a website and with a brand. And what I think is going to start changing over time is we're going to have to start looking at the overall user journey and where users, and especially this is an Amazon metric, which is called an MTB, which is a new to brand touch point, where new to brand touch points happen to us at the moment on the classical search journey, and then how that's actually going to be wrapped up in this new multimodal AI driven world. So that's going to see the market share happen. Bing, I think, will naturally just increase slightly in market share from this because indirectly it's powering a lot of the LLMs. So rather than kind of going on Google directly, we all see the stat counts and the statistigraphs of Bing being at like 6 or 9% or whatever. Indirectly, it's going to be powering a lot anyway. So it's kind of Bing wins regardless of who Google loses to. So it's that kind of element as well that we need to be more cognizant of. And it's actually refreshing to have Bing as part of the main conversation again, and not just be afterthought for Bing places and index now, really.
I know that you did some extensive testing over the weekend on running a lot of different queries. So, I mean, how do you feel it handles its searches in direct comparison to Google as an experience, a user experience?
It's very query dependent. I mean, two or three of the main kind of observations I really found was local. For instance, I've already mentioned really wasn't a positive experience in regard to Chat GPT search. God, I wish they'd shorten that. That's the first thing I need to do for mass market adoption. If people can't say it, people aren't going to use it. Um, that the map non I mean, at one point I was asking for results on a map, and it literally just turned around to me and went, "Oh, here's a link to Google Maps. Here's how you use Google Maps." And I'm like, "Yeah, that kind of element of AI being AI and shooting itself in the foot came through a little bit." In regards to kind of some more niche kind of queries I was looking at, it felt like it had a slightly better logic tree around it. One of the examples I used in the post, which is extremely niche, even for people in the UK, is the fact I went to an international rugby league game on Saturday. My wife Googled the game so she could have a conversation with me about the score when I got home. And then after about 30 seconds of talking to her, it became apparent that she looked at a completely different match. So I replicated the query, and Google was returning the result for England versus Samoa from the October 2023 World Cup as opposed in a different sport in rugby union. So it was kind of leaning more, and Bing was doing the same. Just to caveat that that was leaning more into the dominant common interpretation of what the query would be based on potential searchers and audience. Whereas even though ChatGPT Search was including some of that information, it was better kind of understanding the query deserves freshness side of it, so QDF for timeliness. So that kind of logic pattern automatically was quite interesting to see happening. And even though the result necessarily wasn't as visually impactful on ChatGPT search, and it wasn't as bells and whistles and nice, the information was accurate. And it then elaborated and provided more information. It went on to different links, different junctures. I think in a way that we'll kind of think AI overviews of those little question pills at the bottom will do the same. ChatGPT search is doing that naturally as part of a generative result. So that's going to be important to track and understand the information flow really of how the user journey is then going to stem from there.
I mean, do you think that the quality of the results? I mean, I was speaking to somebody earlier, and they were saying how when you go into search and then the summary that you get in AI overviews, it's actually very, very useful, and it's you're already, the AI overview is doing the work for you. It's presenting to you information. Obviously, I think the issue we've got at the moment is the quality of that, and how trustworthy it is. So there's a couple of different things going on here. Is number one is just how good is the information, or is it still hallucinating? And when it's given that information to the user and it's given such a great user journey, what is that going to do to SEO and search? Because it is completely changing the way that people search, and so that, and in effect, as to how SEOs are going to continue doing their job.
No, absolutely. I think the two sides to that coin really are how cognizant the main mass users are of information being accurate or not, and then that kind of level of experience. It's kind of like the restaurant conundrum. You can go to anywhere that serves like Michelin star food, but then you expect the white glove and the atmosphere and the ambience with it. For a lot of the search queries, ChatGPT Search is providing useful summaries. It's providing relatively accurate summaries. It's relatively trustworthy. It's showing well-known websites in most cases and the citations. The little citations thing that flips up at the bottom, it's got some nice logo candy, and you recognize them from just general internet usage. But the stumbling block I think it has is, or will have, especially with ChatGPT specifically, is how ChatGPT is perceived. It's not a search engine brand; it's an AI tool, and AI is still. I think I think it was either KPMG or McKinsey did a study of 17,000 people across 17 countries end of last year, and they found it was something like 2 in 3 are still have a moderate to low acceptance level of AI. It's not yet in people's Overton windows of accessibility, whereas so it's got to overcome being an AI tool and become a useful thing that people use. Because in theory, TikTok's just a video tool, but it's been able to cross that chasm and become more and avoid this utility there. In terms of trustworthiness, again, I think it's perception wise. One of the queries I did, which I ended up including in the article as an example, was around best digital agencies in New York. And the result that came back was the most populated map pack on Search GPT I've had, but all the results were from the same directory article. And the directory article was one of these ones which is a pay X thousand dollars a year to appear on it as a kind of a list kind of thing. So instantly, I mean, I'm looking into that and I'm going, I instantly don't trust this result because I know I can just pay to be on this directory and I can appear in this result, etc. But that's me looking at it that way. Would somebody who isn't as tech savvy or someone who's a
Mm.
normal user have that same pickup? They probably won't. They'll focus more on the shininess of it, the visuals of it, and what their perception of Chat GPT being. Chat GPT's issue, in my opinion, of doing that chasm crossing to search is it started off as an AI generative engine. Now it's trying to move into search, and I understand why it's now Chat GPT Search and not Search GPT because it's integrated into the core product. It now means I don't have to log into multiple things. It's the same thing. So it's using the existing user base already. I know the prototype was Search GPT, which is mildly confusing. Now I don't know why we did, but I understand it because they've gone from because if you had ChatGPT and SearchGPT, you then have two products technically in the portfolio. Keeping it as one like this, you've got the existing user base and you can branch out and expand within that further. But it's that again perception from the wider market of what ChatGPT is versus being a search engine.
So, in summary, after your, extensive heavy using this weekend, how do you feel about ChatGPT Search? Do you think it is going to be a serious contender? Do you think it's going to take people's attention and tempt them into a new way of searching?
Going back to one thing I said at the start, I think very much this is potentially going to be the Ask Jeeves of AI powered search. Um, for those fortunate not to remember Ask Jeeves was one of the first search engines, and they heavily hammered television advertising globally. They really made that kind of early legwork of getting people to understand and to go online and trust search engines and move online in that way. At the same era point, we had all the adverts for calling a 3 or 6 digit phone number to get people's phone numbers off a directory through your mobile still, and you could buy ringtones. That's how far back we're going with it. But this feels like that Jeeves moment. It's going to do a lot of heavy legwork. And I mean, we are in a very different ecosystem to that back then. And OpenAI is heavily funded, it's heavily invested. OpenAI might carry on the curve and shoot off and then become that contender. If not, it will do a lot of the legwork for the next thing. And whether or not that's an Alphabet thing, a Microsoft thing with Bing, um, Elon Musk and Tesla might get involved. Apple have been rumored to do a search engine. It'll clear the way for a new wave of entrance into a market.
So, in one word, do you think that the introduction of ChatGPT Search is going to be highly influential and significant?
Yes.
Okay, Dan, thank you very much for offering your humble opinion. Very much appreciated. And it's great to speak to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you for having me.